Welcome to the Audible Week 4 of the preseason, fresh from the three of us spending the week together in Miami. Not just the three of us. There was many other people there at Betting with the Bag Miami, but fresh off getting a chance to hang out with you guys in person, we are now back in our separate cities, breaking down football games. My guys, Donnie RightSide and Will Capper in the house. Donnie RightSide, we'll start with you. How are you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
Good. I wish I could say I was rested and ready, but as I get older, the struggles of traveling, it now takes me like 24 to 48 hours as opposed to, let me just get to bed and a nice little sleep. But as we say here, show must go on, Jimmy. We have to perform here.
We have to perform. I have an issue when I party my ass off for a week and then try to come back and just act like everything's normal. I enter the world of insomnia, which has allowed me to look at some of these teams. I've taken every single one of these teams. I'm missing three, but I've taken every single one of these teams, and I've compared their win total odds, division odds, conference odds, Super Bowl odds from 2.5 months ago, so we can see what changes have happened in the last 2 months moving forward. And I know how tricky Week 4 preseason can be, but I understand we did do it up in Miami. It's hard to go back to regular life after that. Well, Capper, how are you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
Yes, so good. Glad to be back. Glad to hang out. So glad to have hung out with you guys. And you're right. Like for you, maybe it's insomnia. For me, you put off a hangover by kind of hair of the dog, but that just kind of accumulates and pushes things into the future. And right now, I'm just kind of finally kind of getting back into my normal rhythm here. As we head into another long weekend for those of us in the U.S., we got another party weekend ahead of us. But that last week, partying with the Lowbag family and the SBR family was fantastic. So thanks again to everyone that put us up, and hope you guys all are ready for this football season to get started.
Yes. The big boy bets will be coming in very soon. Week 4 of the preseason. So we are going to talk about these preseason games in Week 4, but they are tricky, and their totals are very, very low. So just to get things started, let's first give a shout-out to our chat. We have no show without them. We got Truck and Six God Nows, Kyle Jack, Oscar Valverde, Ramirez, Deer Slayer Ski, Justin Grammer, Gas Station Sushi, Alex Ramirez, Pie Guy in the house, Tomarino, Tomor, who says Atlanta's offensive line still looks like trash despite 2 first-round picks added, saw that last year and most of the preseason. And there's Anna Merrick as well. And first off, I have to thank Joe Yurkovich. Joe Yurkovich, who's often in our chat. There's Nutflush Allen, Brandon Lugo. Joe Yurkovich was disgusted by the amount, the quantity of future bets I made last year. And he made it known when I started making them this year that it was a mistake to do it last year, even though I was down 1.8 units. I didn't really have a leg to stand on. And then Gas Station Sushi agreed. He said, you shouldn't be putting in bets 2 months before. And that saved me from being down $500 now on Colts futures. So I thank you two very, very much. As we break down the games and futures, and we'll be hammering the futures especially hard and Week 1 on Friday, because all these games are Thursday. I'd like to ask you, Donnie, how do you handle Week 4 of the preseason? It is a tricky week. How do you handle it?
It's we try to go through the first 3 weeks of the football season, the preseason, and try to read the tea leaves on teams and who's going to play and who's not going to play. The one easy thing, if you want to say anything about Week 4 in the preseason, is nobody's going to play except for the guys that are battling for roster positions, which is really going to leave a lot to be desired, Jimmy. When you take a look at the second half of these football games, me and Ware were just laughing in the pregame here, where you're seeing 33s, 34s, 34s, 33, all the way almost like static across the board, because these teams and coaches and front offices can't wait to get out of the preseason and start that chopping block over the weekend to finalize their roster. The one thing you could take out of is maybe if there's still younger quarterbacks that you feel are playing well, they're still going to get some run in these football games. But trying to find that perceived edge in these games, boy, it's really tough in Week 4, Jimmy.
It's very tricky. It is very tricky in Week 4. I have a lot of trepidation when I look at this card. Will Capper, how do you usually handle Week 4 of the preseason?
It's pretty straightforward. I don't bet it. I'm going to still. But in seriousness, though, I do think there are some edges out there. I went over the card pretty carefully. It's funny how everything is stacked up on Thursday. They just kind of compress it all together so that you kind of you aren't forced to kind of see, the mess that is week 4 of the preseason play out over the whole course of the weekend. But my general philosophy, at least looking at the card for this weekend, I'm looking for, exactly like Donnie said, I'm looking for teams that I think have, we've seen young quarterbacks who have made some progress from week 1 to week 3, continue their progress potentially. And if you can give me a dog price on those, I'm especially interested because, I see, I see all of these games effectively as a coin flip. And so if you're going to give me, points or, a plus money line on what I think is a coin flip game, and then on top of that, I see a quarterback who's shown me that he has life in his arm and his decision making is good, and he's going to be out there competing a little bit harder than maybe everyone else. Then sign me up for a look on those dogs. And then there's got to be some values in the overs here. Some of these teams are going to run some pretty vanilla defenses because they've had some defensive injuries and they're going to try to keep their guys protected. Or potentially the offenses are just going to have a little.
All right. It looks like we have a frozen whale capper, but we will get him back immediately. A frozen whale capper. Well, Donnie, let's get started and let's see if we can touch on each of these games. So let's not spend too long focusing on them. Let's start with Steelers at Panthers. First of all, their win total was 9.5 when we broke this division down. It's still 9.5, but and these are from Bet365, a big 30-cent move towards the under, Donnie. A 30-cent move. It opened 9.5 plus 100 minus 130. Now it's 9.5 over at plus 130 minus 160. There's a whale capper back with us. A whale capper, a 30-cent move towards the Steelers team total under. But interestingly enough, their Super Bowl and conference numbers have gone down. It was plus 2,000 to win the Super Bowl, now plus 1,800. And it was plus 1,000 to win the conference, now plus 900, which leads us to the Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Panthers have had at Bet365, a 45-cent move to their over in the season win total. It was minus 120. We could have got it during the breakdown of the division. Now it's minus 165. A big, big move. Their division conference Super Bowl numbers are all the same, but a 45-cent move towards the over 7.5 wins, which leads us to this game, Pittsburgh, Carolina. Pittsburgh opening up at minus 1.5. It's now minus 3.5 across the board. This total has been at 33 and actually has moved 5 cents to the under, but is still at 33. Donnie RightSide, what do you think of the move towards the under for the Steelers win total, the over for the Panthers total, and how are you handling this football game?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We bring up the first points there. Pittsburgh, I don't really see too much of a big move there. If you're on the Steelers before, nothing really gave you any pause, Jimmy, in the preseason. At least me, to give me pause that said, you know what? I don't know if Big Ben, I don't know if the offensive line is going to be ready with the defense. I think they're going to be just fine. The one interesting thing you brought up, though, with the Carolina Panthers, the move towards the over. Again, this is getting back to just, I haven't seen Cam Newton yet. And this whole new release, which, Tim Tebow had a new release in the offseason we heard about for 3 straight years. And the minute the fire went down and he's in the pocket, he started slinging it sidearm again, which is the same thing Cam Newton's going to do. But you're telling me a big, strong quarterback, physical, built on eluding in the pocket, built on if you grab me in the pocket, I can shake free, has a mid-foot sprain entering into week 1 where they're going to rush him back in week 1, which can only exacerbate the issue if it does happen. I'm interested in that side of it, saying, you know what? If I get a banged-up quarterback to start the season, what are the odds he gets healthier as the season moves on? That's interesting. But getting to the game itself, Pittsburgh and Carolina, give me the backup quarterback situation for Pittsburgh. You might not get a lot from whoever the backup quarterback is actually going to be, but the third stringer on Pittsburgh is still going to be pretty good. I like the Steelers in this game. It's hard to lay 3.5, though, in the final game. But more importantly, the Carolina over, Jimmy, for team total. Baffling to me, actually.
Interesting. I can't wait to drop some of these market moves from Bet365 on you guys. Big move. And, Whale Capper started talking about the Panthers in much higher notes a couple weeks ago. And here they are taking a 45-cent move towards the over. This total is very low, 33. And Pittsburgh's taking 2 points. What do you think of those regular season win total moves, and how are you handling this game, Whale Capper?
I would actually look to try to fade the Panthers move at this point, and it all does come down to the health injury risk from Cam Newton. I will say that in this particular game, Steelers versus Panthers, I do like the backup quarterback situation with the Panthers better. And if they're dogs, then if I'm playing anything, I'm playing Carolina. But as far as their prospects for this season go, I was a little bullish on them just on the basis of, their schedule broke nicely. It felt like they could get a little bit of momentum out of the gate. They could get themselves into a position where they're competing for the NFC South. But, now when you add this uncertainty of we don't really know the health of Cam Newton's shoulder on top of now he's got a bum wheel. This is potentially a problem. They got to go up against the Rams week 1. That's going to be a tough spot right out of the gate. And this is now a lot more, fragile situation in Carolina in terms of making that number. So whereas I was kind of warming up to them, I was kind of thinking people were sleeping on them. I was in line with the market movement. I think now I'm way off this one.
Interesting. Justin Grammer says the season is long and grueling. Cam has had injury problems before. If you isolate McCaffrey, take that away, what are the Panthers? And now if you take them to win under 7.5 wins plus 135. Well, Donnie RightSide leaning towards the Steelers. Well, Capper leaning towards the Panthers. That 3.5 is a big total or a big spread. Are any of you guys liking a move on the total here? Donnie, any move on the total?
I mean, it's 33. And we sat together and we were laughing at stuff like, if you're getting 44, 45, it's an automatic under. But boy, that wiggle room gets so short at 33. There's going to be, salary cap warriors, as I like to call them, in the second half of this game. Their last shot, Mom, Dad, watch me out here on TV trying to do some crazy stuff. But I don't know. If you're going to give me 33, don't you just have to lean towards the, even though it has 17-6 written all over it, I can't advocate saying, you know what, under's a great look here.
Yeah, it's just such a low total. Well, Capper, any lean on this total?
Yeah, I would lean over as well. And a lot of it is just because we've seen some pretty competitive play out of the Steelers offense. They look like they're humming. And just in general, I think the Steelers are a bet on team as we go into the season in terms of game by game. The likelihood that we see some pretty competent play out of the backup quarterbacks for Carolina, combined with the kind of the smoothly running ship here with the Steelers offense, I think does lean to an over here.
Next up, we have Vikings at Bills. There's been very little movement in the two teams' futures. There's been a 5-cent move towards the over, which is something that I'm on, just a 5-cent move towards the over. But in this game, we saw the Bills open up at -2.5, and that quickly turned into a 3-point spread, three-point favorites for the Minnesota Vikings. We've also seen this total shoot up from 33 to 35. Donnie RightSide, Vikings, Buffalo Bills.
You know what's interesting about this game? These are some of the few games that you can really take a look at, because when you try to analyze, it's not so much, Jimmy, about the backup quarterback, especially veteran backup quarterbacks, where maybe in weeks 1, 2, or 3 you like, because you're trying to knock the rust off these guys. You have to get them ready for the season. They do want to still see live bullets and get after it. But when I look at this football game, when you're looking at Buffalo and just say, what's their depth chart going to be like in this game? Josh Allen, he's probably not going to play in this game at all. But you say, wait, Matt Barkley, they've been playing well in the preseason. This actually isn't the time to get your backup quarterback playing time, because what's the last scenario that you can't have entering into the season? Hey, let me just play Matt Barkley 4 quarters and he's going to be my backup. Oh, he just got hurt. Well, let's see if we can surf around and find another guy. You got to protect him. So you might be looking at a huge shot at Tyree Jackson for 3.5 quarters in this football game. And when you look on that Minnesota side, they got a little bit of gunslingers down there on the chart that the team's going to see like, hey, let me see what you got in this game for, because if you do get hurt, we're probably going to come up with a mysteriously injury to IR you anyway to keep you in the fold here. I like Minnesota in this game.
And the market does as well. Well, Capper, a 5.5 point move towards the Vikings and 2 points over to the total going over. What do you see here in this spot, Well, Capper?
Yeah, strong agree with Donnie on this one. I'm a charter member of the Slaughterhouse Hive. This guy's got a shot to unseat the incumbent backup quarterback and potentially be the future of quarterback play down in Minnesota if Kirk Cousins washes out after next season. So this is a good chance for him to really kind of establish himself. I've liked what I've seen from him from a passing standpoint. He's done it against backup defenses, so it's not really like you can tell all of that much. But the fact that in live game action he's making good decisions is huge. So this is a Minnesota or nothing for me.
Minnesota or nothing. And quickly, as quick as possible, first to Donnie and then to Whale Capper. Do you agree with this 2-point move to the over, Donnie?
I do agree with it because I think Minnesota's going to be slinging it around out there. I think they're going to be playing with a little bit of abandon because, again, you're talking about a different thing. Like, we're just trying to get to the season. They actually have some quarterbacks on the bottom of that roster they still want to evaluate. I think they'll dial up some plays for Minnesota. I like the over here.
We have Alex Smith joining us. Great to see Alex Smith in the chat. He says Vikings also have position battles at running back, punt, kick returner, along with a kicker battle as well. Whale Capper, you agree with this total move?
I actually am on the other side. I think I'm leaning under here, and mostly just because the Vikings have defensive depth. Their defensive coaching personnel have been able to coach up replacement level guys into kind of competent roster position guys across the defense. So this has every whiff of Buffalo getting stoned.
Yeah, it does. It really, really does. And you have other Slaughterhouse fans in the chat. Tom Marino saying Slaughter for preseason Hall of Fame, right there, preseason Hall of Fame. All right, let's move on to Colts, Bengals. Colts at Bengals. Huge move, as you guys know. This broke while we were watching the Hurricanes-Gators game, and it was like we thought. Donnie will say it best. I'll let Donnie tell what he thought was going on when we first saw it come across the screen in red. I'll let Donnie talk about that. The season win total went from 9.5 to 6.5. It's at 6.5, and it's still juiced to the over. Over is a minus 130. The division from 120 to 500. Conference 8 to plus 2,200. Super Bowl from 1,600 to plus 5,000. For the Bengals, there's been a 15-cent move towards the under 6.5 win total. It was at minus 160. Now, if you want it, it's at minus 175. No moves on their division, conference, or Super Bowl looks. Indianapolis, Cincinnati opened up minus 4. It is now at minus 3. And this total at half the books has dropped a half point to 33.5 from the 34 opening. Donnie RightSide, take us to the announcement and tell us what you think about how this will reflect in the Colts play this Thursday.
Yeah, sitting at Frankie's bar, we're relaxing, having some pitchers of beer, some wings, some, chips, and watching the Miami game. And all of a sudden across the screen, we had a nice, nice view, is it comes up in red at the bottom of the screen out of nowhere. Andrew Luck announces his retirement from the NFL and disappears in red. So Bobano's sitting right next to me, Ian Cameron, and I'm saying to Ian, did you see that? He goes, yeah, I absolutely saw that. What's going on right there? What was that about? I said, I think ESPN was just hacked. Every time a new news breaks, it comes up in yellow. This came in red. And sure enough, everybody goes to check the Twitter. Adam Schefter has it on there. And it was devastation across the board. Couldn't even believe what was going on. But fast forwarding, just from a football perspective, from a fan perspective, from a gambling perspective, this team was so interesting coming into the season with the possibilities. They had every single thing we liked. A revamped offensive line that was sensational last year. An MVP caliber quarterback. A team with a ton of cap space. And an engineer as a head coach that's built from the Philadelphia Eagles mold, winning a Super Bowl, coming over and bringing that aggressive mentality. And poof, it goes up right in flames. You're talking about like a 9.5, dropping to a 6.5 in the team total. The air completely out of the building on this football team. Now it's almost like we have to rebuild and try to get in as gamblers and cappers to say, what are we really getting out of this team? Is the value left in Indianapolis? A lot of air, as I said, went out of that balloon. I really don't know what the response is going to be in week 4 because you're not putting, obviously, Jacoby Brissett out there because he's your starter. And now you're looking for that backup help. How much is he going to play? It's a really interesting conundrum. But just as a football fan of watching, I really was looking forward, Jimmy, to just watching the Colts this year.
Yes, we were very high on the Colts. I was very excited to make Colts bets. I remember in week 1 of our show, Whale Capper talked about liking a Chargers-Colts conference final. Now he moved. It was just an early look that we sort of were moving away from, especially when we heard that the Chiefs were going to not be missing a certain superstar for a few weeks to start the season. But wow, Whale Capper, wow, 9.5 down to 6.5. Touch on that. What do you think on the season win total? And then how do you think the Colts will handle this Week 4 preseason game against the Bengals as 3-point dogs?
So this is an easy stay away from the game for me because I have no idea what to expect. And it is funny how you had Donnie set up that story because that's kind of common. Like people are treating this like, well, where were you when you found out the shocking news that Andrew
Yes.
Luck was retiring from the NFL? It's like our generation's, where were you when Kennedy was shot? And speaking of shot, Jimmy, you avoided the bullets of Colts futures, way before the preseason. I did not. I took one, center body mass here. I had a huge position on Colts to win the AFC South at a plus number that I was very content and so satisfied with how much value I had captured on that, getting out ahead of the market on that one because it was around, I don't know, minus 135-ish or so before the Andrew Luck retirement. And this is now, as far as I can tell you, this is a loss because I do not think the Colts are viable in the AFC South with Jacoby Brissett as the quarterback for the duration of this season. And I think that the fact that your fearless leader walks out leaves you at the altar. This has the potential to have some mental ramifications in terms of motivation of the team. I mean, guys got to be looking around at each other, in the locker room now, like, oh man, Andrew Luck, he's walking away because, it was too much to risk the injury of, potentially, the head shots, the shoulder shots, the leg shots. Like this guy's the smartest guy in the room and he's walking away from the sport. Like, how are we supposed to go out there and run out there and put our bodies on the line? So there's some potential for a little bit of a hangover across the team, across motivations. When you look at their schedule, it does not give them a soft landing for Brissett. He is going to be thrown right into the fire. And if we get to week 6 when their bye rolls around and they're 1-4, 0-5 potentially, I think there's going to be some serious discussions in the at the head of the organization. What do we do at this point? We try out some of the other potential quarterbacks. Do we let Jacoby Brissett ride this out? Are we positioning ourselves for a draft choice because we're sure as hell aren't going to win the AFC South? So there's a lot of red flags here that, to me, if there's any look on the win total, it's to the under. This opens up opportunities, obviously, for the other 3 teams in the AFC South, but they all have fatal flaws. So, somebody's going to roll the dice and hit a winner here. But I'm not sure exactly who it is. And I'm just kind of staying away from this whole division at this point and taking my loss on the Colts South future.
Tough spot. Whale Capper, the free play on the total now over minus 130, under a plus 100, 6.5, under 6.5 plus 100. Would you jump on that?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a free play, I'm taking the under in a heartbeat because, like I said, that the likelihood that you're not going to get top level play out of the guys around you because you went from, in a heartbeat, we can win the Super Bowl this year. We can go to the Super Bowl this year. We are talented enough. We have a top 5 quarterback in the league, and now on its head, you've snapped and now you're a bottom 5 quarterback in the league. Your 9.5 to 6.5 says it all. That's a playoff team to an also ran. And, that type of that type of impact on your mental, capacity for how you're putting yourself on the line week in, week out as a player in this league, on the offensive line, on the defensive line, receivers, D-backs, like all these guys, I think are going to be a step slow. There's going to be a little bit of kind of, the impact of this is going to be a shadow over their play this season. And I think the Colts are in for a long year.
Donnie, are you surprised at the 1 point market move towards the Indianapolis Colts? 1.5 at 5 dimes. Does that surprise you?
In the game itself?
Yeah.
Or what
in the game?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't surprise me. I just think they're maybe just looking at some added benefit, just to get back to Whale Capper's point on this one, taking a center mass hit. And I shout out all the people who on social media, those Colts fans, they're such idiots for booing. Let me tell you a little bit of story about the Philadelphia Eagles. If this was the same thing in week 3 preseason, we're loaded for bear and ready to make a Super Bowl run. And Carson Wentz says, you know what? Just mentally checked out, hurt my back, hurt my knee. As he walks off on the field, if you remember in college football where they carry like the goalpost out of the stadium in some of these schools after a big win, well, the fans probably would have carried the stadium with Carson Wentz in it and threw it into the Delaware River. So I don't have any, problems ripping into my own fan base for that. But we would be the same way as Colts fans. This team was ready to make a run, and Whale Capper said it best: center mass bullseye hit to that fan base.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different ways to break down the decision. And, when Mike Miner was whining and whining about being on the trade block, how he likes his family to be in Texas, I shat all over him. I beat him up. But this isn't a situation where I would do that. It is, there's a difference in the danger. And, from an NHL perspective, I was a really big Rick Rippon fan. He killed himself. I was a big Wade Belak fan. He killed himself. These head injuries affect these guys enormously. I can't speak for what he is going through, but I'm not going to take any shots on the desire to live a long, healthy life, if that is part of the equation. Let's move on to Eagles at Jets. It looks like I may have, and I'd like you both to touch on this, 25-cent move towards the over in wins, 9.5. It was minus 140. It's now at minus 165. The division conference Super Bowl, 100 plus 800 plus 1,400 have not changed, but a 25-cent move towards the Eagles over 9.5. Does it still have value at minus 165? I don't know, and I'd love you guys to touch on that. The Jets, though, their win total has gone 5 cents towards the over, and this was a win total that I was interested in the under at plus 150. Now it's at plus 155 under 6.5. We talked about the enormous volatility of this Jets team. They could be up. They're plus minus. If you predict what their win total would be, you have to say that their plus minus should be 2, because a lot can go wrong and a lot can go right with this team. For this game, this total opened at 32.5. It's now at 35 across the board. Pinnacle still holding at 34.5. For the Jets, they're at minus 3 and now minus 4 or minus 4.5. Donnie RightSide, your Eagles. Market move towards the Jets. What's the story in Philadelphia? Is there an angle to attack this game?
I don't know if there's an angle to attack the game, because you're probably going to get, again, 3.5 quarters of Clayton Thorson, and with a lot of 3s and 4s at wide receivers and in the secondary on the defensive line and the offensive line. So there's not a lot to like. But again, we're talking about week 4 of the preseason. So if we're essentially saying, Jimmy, that it's a 4-point line towards the Jets, I'm going to take the other team automatically, because if they just hang around, you're asking the Jets to win by a touchdown in this game. Both of these teams have some pretty good aspirations. The Eagles are a little bit higher coming into the season than the Jets, but the Jets still expect to win, so they're not going to go out there and risk and try to find that last 3 players on their football team and try to maybe get somebody injured. The thing that you brought up there, value on the Eagles over 9.5, I think regardless, they're going to be able to get to 10 wins, but there are a couple things that are a little bit out of place so far in Philadelphia to start the season. Fletcher Cox hasn't really got back, the all-pro defensive end, defensive tackle, one of the best in the game. He's still banged up. We'll see about middle linebacker position to see how maybe that can maybe be adjusted in there. And also, let's not forget, maybe the best right tackle in the game comes out, Lane Johnson, and says, hey, hurt my knee a couple weeks ago. I'll be all right, but I'm going to play through pain this entire football season. I hate to hear that.
Do you think there's still value, Donnie, on the win total over 9.5, or is minus 165
Yes.
just far too much juice?
I do. Regardless if Fletcher Cox plays, that's a 10-win football team or more. There's value, minus 200, whatever the perceived value is going to be. They're hitting double digits, so I would still say yes.
Very, very interesting. Whale Capper, the 25-cent move towards the Eagles win season over, and then a move towards these New York Jets. They're now 4.5-point favorites at 5 dimes. Is there an angle you see in this game? And what do you think about having Eagles tickets, Eagles futures in your pocket? Because I've yet to make them.
So in the game, I do think the Eagles present the value. I like Thorson fine. I like that they haven't been running vanilla offense really. They're trying out some pretty intense things. They're throwing the ball down the field, and they're going for home runs. And you might as well, get those plays out and get your guys familiar with doing that sort of thing, especially if you're going to run those sort of plays in the preseason. So yeah, the Eagles are not going to run a vanilla offense here the way I can see this game, and they make sense, as the right side here. As far as their season outlook goes, big believer in the Eagles. My opinion hasn't really changed. All of Donnie's notes about injuries are real, and if you haven't already gotten onto the over, I think that ship has sailed. You're not going to capture any value betting into that number now. Your best bet is probably to let the Cowboys, look pretty carefully at the Cowboys and the Eagles schedule here. Eagles have a couple of tough games in their first quarter of the season. They're going to have some banged up pieces. It may take them until October till we really see all of the pieces kind of click together here for the Eagles. But once they do, I think they are going to be dominant. And I think the middle of their schedule looks soft. I think they're going to be able to kind of tear through the month of October and November and rack up wins. And then on the flip side, the Cowboys have probably the easiest 3 starting games across all of the contending teams, which means, you could see a lot of people run into the window to back the Cowboys at 3-0, especially if they do well, they're 3-0. All of a sudden, Zeke's coming back. They got a deal done. Dak's looking good. Amari Cooper's playing. Like you could see that the public kind of picking up a little bit of steam and running to back the Cowboys and shortening that number. And so if you have not gotten involved in this yet, my best advice is wait until after week 3 is done. Week 4, Thursday Night Football, is Packers versus the Eagles. The Packers are in a terrible situation, even though they are at home. They have a brand new coach who is not up to snuff as far as preparing a week ahead of time to get his team and his specific game plan ready, whereas Doug Peterson is shown to be a master of that. And I think you're going to get a nice opportunity there to back the Eagles in that game week 4 on the road against the Packers. And if they do well and beat the Packers, that's going to start to tilt the balance in terms of public perception on who's going to win the NFC East. And so really after week 3, if we're seeing like a 2-1, 1-2 Eagles and a 3-0 Cowboys, I think you're going to be able to get a nice plus number on the Eagles to win the East, and you're going to be able to ride that through the fall. And that's my strategy heading into this, to go on top of some preseason action I have down on the Eagles.
I like it. I like the breakdown, and I am on the fence at the minus 165 for the win total over, but we'll get conference and Super Bowl tickets in my pocket at some point over the next week or so. Let's move on to Falcons at Jaguars. No movement for the Falcons. 8.5 minus 125 to the over. That stayed the same. Division 375, Conference 1600, Super Bowl 3300. Now, I was in Miami, and I was telling Drew Martin, I was like, man, I'm high on these Falcons. High on these Falcons, and we talked about some of their issues with the defenders returning from injury, some of their issues on the offensive line. And he was saying, that ticket for them to win the Super Bowl at plus 3,300 is something that he wants to get as well in his pocket, and that made me very excited. The Jaguars, their season win total has not changed. And I went back. I was like, how could it not change? It's still at 8.5, over plus 120, under minus 150. The Colts, Andrew Luck has no effect on the season win total. I was like, man, did I write that in wrong? That made no sense to me. But everything else has changed. The win of division was plus 375, now plus 260. Conference was plus 1,600, now plus 1,400. Super Bowl plus 3,300, now plus 2,500. In this game, Jacksonville opens up at minus 3.5, now minus 4, and this total has dropped from 33 to a low of 31.5 at Heritage. Donnie RightSide, Falcons, Jaguars.
You look at the opening lines, 33 is a total, 34.5, and now sits 32 across the board, and I wholeheartedly agree. And we got a really good look live. We've been watching Jacksonville as well as everybody else for the preseason, but we got to look at them live. And I don't like to take a lot out of the preseason, but whatever's going on in Jacksonville where it seems like, we're not going to panic and Nick Foles will be fine, that offense is absolutely atrocious for the first 3 games. You're not going to see anything in game 4. I mean, you have a 32 on the board. I would not be surprised if this game is like a 9-6 affair with just field goals in it, because what gives you added that you would love Atlanta as a second half in this game, doing absolutely nothing out there with a coach that could care less about actually playing in the game itself. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, if we see the Gardner Minshew show again, or Alex Magoo down there playing, Conference USA football, who's getting even first downs in this football game? I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Even at 30, so Pinnacle's still holding at 32.5. Most of the books at 32. Heritage at 31.5, but there's no doubt the Jaguars have looked terrible. And T says, damn well, Capper, you have a room for rent. I want to live where you are Weather looks beautiful. Yes, it's funny that even down here in Costa Rica, I find myself seething with jealousy when I see where Whale Capper's at. Only when the ocean's in the background, though, for me, I would say. Only when the ocean's in the background for me. Why do you think, Whale Capper, that this season win total hasn't changed at all after the Andrew Luck announcement? And how are you planning to hammer this Falcons Jaguars spot? And what do you think about Falcons futures? Because I still haven't made them. And I remember you saying, take Falcons to win the division at plus 375. The Saints' first 4 games are not easy, starting with the Texans. And maybe you can find that perfect hedging opportunity plus on both sides, especially if you don't believe in the Panthers. Whale Capper, a lot of questions to answer. Falcons, Jaguars.
Yeah, so I'm sticking with my feelings about the Falcons being a realistic contender in the NFC this season, even though we haven't seen anything positive coming out of their play through the preseason here. I guess the one positive would be no one of significant importance has taken an injury. Also positive, Matt Ryan didn't retire. So that's good. And we'll look at 33-1 makes sense to me for the Super Bowl. Plus 300 makes sense to me for the South. Those are still good looks in my opinion. And Donnie's look on this game specifically of an under is great. He was capping at 9-6. That's pretty aggressive. I'm looking at like maybe 6-0. I mean, like the way that what we've seen out of these Jaguars to this point in preseason has been so bad offensively. I don't know that reflects on how they will look come regular season because we haven't seen some of their skill position players take very many snaps. But their skill position players stink, which is a problem. And I think that in general, people look at Nick Foles and they remember Nick Foles in St. Louis. They look at the wide receiver depth chart and they're like, who the hell is he going to throw to? They remember drafting Leonard Fournette last year in fantasy football and they're like, that guy screwed me. So just the market sentiment on the Jaguars is there's not going to be enough there offensively for them to compete for this division. I would say that that's probably selling them short because I don't know that this is going to be the roster we see. This is going to be the depth chart that we see these guys go with from wire to wire here. It wouldn't surprise me to see them make a move and bring in a wide receiver. And Nick Foles is a huge upgrade over Blake Bortles, and there are some things to be a little optimistic about here, especially on the defensive side of the ball for Jags. So of the teams in the AFC South, I guess I feel the best about them picking up some of the win likelihood here from what the Colts have dumped on us. I still think the fatal flaws exist in both Houston and Tennessee that I want absolutely no part of anything to do with them exceeding expectations this year, which kind of leaves by process of elimination. That leaves me on the Jags, I guess. But like I said, there's still somebody's going to hit a lucky number here and pick up a little momentum and seize control of this division. But I sure as heck don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, it's a tricky cap right now. Next up, we have Ravens, Redskins. Very little movement on both teams' futures. Ravens have the same conference odds, the same Super Bowl odds as the Falcons, and I see the Falcons having a much higher possibility of actually cashing any of those tickets for the football game. We know Harbaugh rolls in the preseason. We also saw what he did in week 1 last year, that 47-3 trouncing of the Bills. Whale Capper and I talked about that this past week, whether or not we were going to back the Ravens week 1 at Miami. I did. I followed through with it about 24 hours ago. I got them at -5. The official play on the show was 4.5 because I was still available at Bookmaker. As soon as I did that, I had a couple cappers that I respect say, man, that's fishy. Man, that's trappy. Dolphins at home. So, took a little bit of wind out of my sails, but I still made a bet. I like getting that. My unit size has dropped after last year's terrible baseball season, but I dropped a $200 bet on the Ravens -5 week 1. So, does it continue here? Does Baltimore preseason domination continue here? I certainly think so. They're hanging a -7 on Baltimore. This opened at -3. It's at 5.5 at Pinnacle. 6 is everywhere else. A 7 in week 4 of preseason.
Jesus.
This total 33.5 everywhere. 34 at Bookmaker. Start with you, Donnie RightSide. Ravens, Redskins.
Yeah, Baltimore's always the bet on teams that we look at, because we know when the final scoreboard really means something, and you preach that, you live that each and every day. When some organizations don't care about it, which is fine, because the only thing that really matters is the regular season. But when you take a look at a line move that strong, what are we looking at? Chris, like 2.5 opens up and now sitting at 6. Then you said 5 times, you're showing 7s out there. That's absolutely outrageous when you take a look at it. But if you break this game down, what I would like to see is, I didn't do much research on the game yet, being 2 days away. They're probably not going to let you know exactly what's going to take place yet, but if Dwayne Haskins plays in this football game, and again, he's still a rookie, but he's going to be the future of that team. They're not going to leave him out there with third-string linemen and third-string skill position guys. That's something I would read into. I think Trace McSorley is going to play a lot in this football game, and that bodes well if you want to bet and back, obviously, the Baltimore Ravens. But getting up around a touchdown is ridiculous. But if they come out and say, Jimmy, like the Redskins say, you know what, we're obviously not going to play Case Keenum. He's our starter for the year, and we're not going to play Haskins and risk him the injury. I think Baltimore might just steamroll Washington right off the field.
Trot Wham thinking about backing Baltimore for the second week and in a row. Whale Capper, do you agree with the market move towards Baltimore? And what do you think of this total, Redskins-Ravens?
I would look at, I mean, if you look at what Baltimore is doing in this preseason and you ascribe it 100% to their trying, I think you're selling them a little short. I think they're really good. I think this Ravens team is running unique looks offensively. Even when the second and third units are out there, they obviously have kind of tried to break the mold a little bit with how they're approaching their offensive scheme, and it's working. And it's working really well. And granted, they're going up against defenses that maybe giving them vanilla looks, and we may all of this may change on a dime when we get into the regular season. But I think I get the market move. 7 is ludicrous to lay on a preseason game. I know I would have said that last week, and Baltimore they were way the heck ahead. And what was it? Was that the game that got canceled because of the weather and they didn't get 55 minutes in? Yeah, there was lightning, and so those tickets got voided. But anyway, it's Baltimore nothing in this one, and maybe just hold off on laying the 7 points. Hope that they run. Hope that Washington wins the coin toss. That they run some high confidence building plays for Haskins, and the Redskins take like a 7-0 lead, and then maybe come back on Baltimore at that point or something like that. I don't really have any plays on this game, but I do expect Baltimore to win. And go on to their outlook for the season. Baltimore, when we did the AFC North preview, we kind of made the case like, look, these are pretty evenly matched teams. And if you're going to give me the best price of those 3 on Baltimore, I'll take that. And I would even say that my confidence in them and my feelings about them have grown the more and more we see from what their offense is trying to do this season. And, it's the huge risk is still Lamar Jackson's potential for, picking up an injury here over the course of the season, because he's going to be in harm's way. But this has every makings of a feeling where he's got to step on pretty much every team in the league, and they have a nice schedule the way it's set up in terms of when they face their divisional opponents and where and advantages and situational aspects. So really, I'm feeling the Ravens this year, and you started the entire breakdown with they're about the same price as the Falcons. I think both have, reasonably similar values here, because, the Colts, we were just talking about the Jags picked up a little bit of the win probability that the Colts put on the table. But I would say that the true winners in Andrew Luck retirement scenario were, the Patriots, the Chiefs, and the Ravens. I think that one of those 3 teams was going to be on the outside of the bye situation, with the Colts likely taking a bye. And now here, one of those slots will open up for one of those teams. And I think the Ravens have a legitimate shot at it. This is a team that I think can win 11 or 12 games with the way that they're rolling out this dynamic offense. So I'm still pretty bullish on these Baltimore Ravens.
Wow, yes, and increasing by the week. Brandon Lugo says next year's Ravens preseason lines may be double digits. And then he laughs. Yes, they have been dominant. Let's move on to Giants and Patriots. We have to speed this up a little bit. First off, big loss for the Patriots. To me, I'd love to hear what you guys think about David Andrews, hospitalized, blood clots. He's a team captain. He's in his 5th year. He's their starting center. He's a guy Brady trusts. This could be a big loss. No movement in the Patriots futures, but the Giants have had a 20-cent move towards the under 6.5 wins. If you now wanted to take a risk on the over 6.5 wins, you'd be getting plus 150. No other moves on their futures. Patriots opened up at minus 3.5. They're now minus 2.5, down to 1.5 at Bet Online and Intertops. This total opened at 35.5. It's now 35. Donnie RightSide, Patriots Giants.
Yeah, this game will come down to the same thing, almost like the same cap that we were talking about a few games ago. If Daniel Jones is going to play in this football game, they're going to let him get at least a quarter and a half. I think the Giants would be a bet on team. You know Eli Manning's not going to play in it, but if you do pull Daniel Jones out of this one, then it gets a little bit murky because I always get back to that next man up mentality with the New England Patriots and the way they've been going through the preseason. It's like the Super Bowl right here. I mean, forget about, the undefeated New York Giants, the undefeated Patriots back in the Super Bowl where the Giants upset them. Both these teams coming in 3-0. There's a lot on the line here, Jimmy. These two teams really want this football game, being facetious actually. But looking at New England, I think they're more steady, and it comes down to me. If Daniel Jones plays in this football game, I like the Giants. If he doesn't play, I would lean to the other side. And yes, you're right, Jimmy. Andrews' injury at center, that's the quarterback of the offensive line. Yes, Brady makes a lot of the calls. Yes, Brady checks for protection. But your offensive lineman who's that good in that position reminds me a lot of last year with Travis Frederick down with the Cowboys. You can't lose really productive players, especially at center. That's the quarterback of the offense up front.
It's going to be a tough loss, but we'll see how Brady handles it. Whale Capper, Patriots, Giants.
This particular Week 4 preseason matchup, we've seen it every year going back like 5-6 years now, and it's always a weird scoreline. I'm staying completely away from this preseason game, but I like Donnie's breakdown there. As far as the Patriots and their look at how Andrews impacts them, I was completely shocked, apoplectic even. Maybe no one's paying attention, but why there was no movement at all in the Steelers-Pats game Week 1 was mind-blowing to me. I mean, the center touches the ball on every offensive snap. Like this, he's worth a point, maybe 2 points to the spread, just on the basis of they're going to now have to integrate a new guy on the fly. Brady's already, when I'm not expecting him to look like postseason Super Bowl, type of efficiency and effectiveness from the passing position. So, this is a huge deal, and I think this is opening up probably the best look of Week 1, which is a bet on the Steelers. Even though it's banner night, even though it's prime time, even though it's against, it's Mike backing Mike Tomlin against Bill Belichick. These two teams are not that far apart. That you should be asking to, they should be asking you to lay 6, and it's kind of drifting even in, towards 6.5, 7 to bet on the Patriots here. So this is just absolutely setting up as a perfect storm where they're going to take all my money on the Steelers bet.
Let's keep rolling. Let's try and keep the speed going. We have Lions at Browns, a 30-cent move to the under 9.5 wins for the Cleveland Browns. That piqued my interest. Lions, Browns, Lions look like they're not going to get any of my futures money. We'll talk more about that on Friday. But for this game, Lions, Browns open up at -4. They're now -4.5 across the board. And there's been a half-point move to the over. Donnie RightSide, Lions, Browns.
Yeah, not a really great look here. We know not a lot of people are going to play in this football game. So just getting back to the original point that we have, if it's going to sit somewhere, Jimmy, around 4.5, which means you have to win by a touchdown, as bad as the Detroit Lions have looked, I'll just lean on taking the points in this one here. Cleveland already mindset is, God damn it, we're 1 week away. Can we just make this hurry up? Maybe the Lions show up a little bit in this one, at least cover the line.
Yeah, it is a big spread. Is this one of the spots that you were talking about, Whale Capper?
It's not. I think
just say it is.
I honestly like this. This is set up. This is kind of set up for another, like a redux of the Browns-Bucks game from last week. I'm expecting the same kind of level of talent out on the field and two offensive lines that I have huge questions about that I think are going to stall drives and look like sloppy offenses. This looks like an underspot, if nothing else, and an easy stay away.
Yeah. The Lions just can't be trusted in any situation. Let's move on to Chiefs-Packers. There has been a 20-cent move towards the over 10.5 wins for the Chiefs. That was a plus line when we did our divisional breakdown. Now it is a -115. Their conference has jumped up to plus 350 from plus 375, but that's the only move there. For the Packers, on the other hand, there's been a 10-cent move to the under 9.5 wins, but no other futures have been touched. Green Bay opened up -1.5. They're a -2 now across the board. 2.5 at Bet365. And this total has gone down a half point or a full point from the 35.5 opener. Donnie RightSide, Chiefs, Packers.
Yeah, even Chris opened up, Jimmy, it looks like around 38 offshore, now sitting at 34.5. And again, that's just a buyback saying, who is even going to play in this game? Maybe Andy Reid has something up his sleeve, or maybe factor something in the third and fourth quarters in this one to try to dial something up to see if he can get a look on one of his backup quarterbacks. But I'll sit on that same adage. Green Bay, from their perspective, not too sure in this football game. Opened up pick 'em 1 goes to 2. I'll just take the points with Kansas City in this one. But getting back to one of your team total looks there, I really like Kansas City. I think when we were filming back, a couple months ago, the Tyreek Hill thing was still floating above us, and we didn't know if he was going to be back in, so that murkies the water. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. So I actually really like Kansas City this year.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Capper was saying a similar type of thing. Do you think? 11 wins is not easy, but we've seen how dynamic this Chiefs offense could be. What do you think about the 20-cent move to the over, Capper? And do you have a move on Chiefs Packers?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's entirely buyback. I agree that if anything, you're looking for an over here. Can't see any value in either side. This is a true coin flip. So if you're going to bet it, maybe take the dog on the plus money line. But Donnie's dead on. These Chiefs are going to be a force in the AFC this year. Pat Mahomes is, even with a pretty significant regression back to kind of average quarterback play and third year in the league, we're still talking about a guy who's going to throw 40 touchdowns. And this offense is going to be explosive. Tyreek Hill is an absolute difference maker, taking the top off the defense. He has the ability to get more separation than any other receiver in the league. So when you have a guy with an arm like Mahomes and a guy with speed like Cheetah, then you got to look for 30, 35 points a game out of this crew, and they're going to put up a lot of wins. So I like that look, Donnie.
And my guy in text, my guy Vic, saying a lot of injuries yesterday on starters for KC. I'll have to take a closer look on that. Let's move on to Buccaneers at Cowboys. There has been a 10-cent move. A 10-cent move towards the under 8.5 wins. It's still juiced to the over, but it was at minus 140, over 8.5 wins, now at minus 130. There's been no change in their futures, and there's been no change in the Buccaneers' future. In this spot on Thursday, the Cowboys opened at -3. They're now -5 across the board. There's a 4.5 at Pinnacle, and this total has dropped a point from its 34.5 opener at BetOnline. Donnie RightSide, Buccaneers, Cowboys.
Yeah, taking a look on the team total, Jimmy. We'll start on that first with the Dallas Cowboys. A lot of team, being a little bit unstable. You say, well, why is that? Not really injury concerns. No, but you're talking about the wide receiver, the quarterback, and the running back, Jimmy, that all want their money. And I'm not talking about week 1. Let's just say nobody comes under agreement. They're still going to be hungry and ready to play. But what happens when the rubber meets the road, weeks 11, 12, and 13, when they sit back and go, you know what? I was supposed to get my money. I came out and played. I got 4 games to go in this season. I don't know if I can give it my all because I want my contract in the offseason. That's the only reason probably you would lean as like a doomsday scenario towards the under. But in the football game itself, I like what I've seen by Dallas so far. I think they'll be physical in this football game, but you're laying 5 again in a preseason game, which means you have to win by 7 in a game of uncertainty. No real side in the play, but that Dallas over-under on the team total actually makes sense to me that it's a little bit juiced now to the under.
It does. It does make sense to me. A lot of question marks there. Capper, Buccaneers, Cowboys.
Yeah, this is a good scenario actually to look for the dog on the money line. I think I agree with Donnie that the Cowboys, what they've done this preseason has been pretty good, but I don't think they should be a 5-point favorite in a pretty much a coin flip type of game here. And I don't love Cooper Rush and he'll be getting a ton of snaps here for Dallas. And I think Dallas is has slowly kind of ramped back what they're doing as far as their game plan and their approach in the preseason games as we've gone deeper and deeper here. So they kind of got their ass kicking out of the way in the Governor's Cup. They took the Texans to the woodshed, and I think you pretty much see them punt on this one.
This is a crazy spot coming up here. Titans at Bears. We have Andrew Luck's announcement, and there's been a 70-cent move since we broke this game down to the Titans win total under 8.5. A 70-cent move, the Titans win total under. Now, to win the division, that's gone up. That's plus 350 now from plus 650. The conference gone up, Super Bowl gone up. But a huge move to the under 8.5 wins, which I had to, again, double check to make sure that all these numbers were correct. For the Bears, there's been a 10-cent move to the under 9.5 wins. 10-cent move to the under 9.5 wins. Chicago opened up at -3. There's some 2.5 on the board in this game, and this total stuck right around 33. Donnie RightSide, Titans, Bears.
It's interesting that under is moving in that direction because you're not looking at a team that's like a 50-50 proposition with the Colts. You're probably looking at two straight up auto losses for Tennessee that now open it up where at least now you're 50-50 at least in those football games and probably at least favored in the game that you're going to host at home. That one's interesting there. And the Bears, look, you're going to get that sentiment out here. We haven't seen much from the Bears. So people get a little bit antsy and say, well, if Mitchell Trubisky doesn't work out, this Bears team might not make the playoffs or win 10 football games. I hear it on that as well. But this whole AFC South is kind of interesting. Sort of, has that setup to me a couple years back where we looked at the NFC West, where like 7-9 team makes the playoffs. An 8-8 football team is going to be in this division, probably right in the week 17 this year.
Yeah, it's, and we'll talk about the Texans market move because that's been the opposite because now they don't have to worry about the Colts, but Titans, 70-cent move to the under. 70 cents. Well, Capper, huge move. I want you to touch on that. And what do you think happens here? Titans, Bears 3-point favorites.
I don't 100% understand that move at all, to be honest with you. Their likelihood of capturing an extra win here with the Colts, with the Andrew Luck news is very real. So it's not clear to me why this would have taken a hit to the under. Although my personal feelings about the Titans have not changed. If they ran out today and said, you know what, we've seen enough in training camp, we're concerned about Mariota's shoulder and his feeling in his hands and his arm, we're going to give Tannehill the ball here week 1 and see if we can make a run with a guy who's done it before in the NFL. All of a sudden, my ears are perked up. Oh, really, Tannehill? Because honestly, I have more confidence that he'll be able to put together, some pretty complete performances here and stay on the field and not disrupt sort of the chemistry building of this team than I would for Mariota. I mean, you throw Mariota in there. If he looks bad, if he looks shaky, if he looks, a little, if he's not, if he's throwing picks because if he's throwing dead ducks, all of this stuff, there's going to be a lot of talk in the locker room. Do we pull the trigger? Do we make the move? Do we get Tannehill out there? And the only way that manifests is if you lose a couple of your starting opening games here. I'm kind of annoyed by this because I would like to take advantage of a couple of good opportunities. I would like to take advantage of Titans week 1 on the road. I think 5 points is probably too many if you look at the strength of these two teams. And similarly, week 2, I would like to bet on the Titans in that spot against the Colts, who are kind of be figuring their stuff out. But if Mariota is the quarterback, then these are stay away games for me. And all of this is kind of just making me annoyed about the Titans from a top to bottom. And if that move, if that was a real kind of action play. Selling on the Titans, I think it's probably born out of the fact that somebody knows something about Mariota.
Well, Ray Williams has a good point about Taylor Lewin being out with the 4-game suspension to start the year and says losing Lewin is huge. Let's move on to Rams at Texans. The changes in the Texans you could expect coming. So their season win total was 8.5. It was heavily juiced to the under at -140. Now that's switched. Now the over is -140. They were 220 to win the division. They're now 130. They were plus 1,600 to win the conference. Now they're plus 1,100. And they were 33 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. They're now plus 1,800. Will they be the team that can take the biggest advantage, at least divisionally, with the Colts being out? The Rams have seen a 5-cent move to the under 10.5 wins. You're getting -145 on under 10.5 wins. The Texans are 2.5-point favorites, and this totals 33. Donnie RightSide, Rams, Texans.
Yeah, I don't know so much about the week 4 game in this. Even though the Rams showed up a little bit last week, I don't see a lot of offense here. But it's really interesting when you look at the Houston Texans now as front and center, which I don't know how lucky you can get to be a football coach to be in this division like Bill O'Brien finds himself each and every year. No matter what he does, something always breaks in his direction to try to keep him around 8-8. We'll make a playoff game. You'll get embarrassed by another really good football team and a good coach on your own home surface, and they'll probably redo it up again. So Houston probably has that foot in the door to win the division, but we'll see how Bill O'Brien holds up in that aspect. But the Rams are my preseason hero, and the reason being they're going to be the team, Jimmy, that steps out and gets preseason actually canceled over the next 2 to 3 seasons. Sean McVay's press conferences really make me laugh. He sits up there and legitimately says, this doesn't make any sense for us, and we're not playing anybody, and we don't care. I love it.
That's such a good take. Whale Capper, Rams, Texans.
So I love that, Donnie. So Sean McVay the least valuable player of the Super Bowl becomes the most valuable person of the of the preseason this year. That is great. Rams. I don't love their depth. I don't love the second, third units on this team. They're not a team that I'm ever backing in the preseason. And I was pretty cold on the Rams when we did our NFC South preview. I've backed off on that a lot. The other teams in the NFC West, our NFC West preview, I was cold on the Rams. And, I don't see any of these other teams really challenging them. Like, they could sleepwalk to 9-10 wins in this division and still get a division win here. And, it's I would like to see someone step up and challenge these guys, but I don't think it's going to be this year. So I get the move to their win total under. They have a tough schedule. Goff is not a quarterback that I really hold in especially high regard. He's got new center and guard play that could potentially impact how smooth their offense looks this season. Gurley, who knows what his health is and if he'll make it through 16 games with expecting to carry any kind of meaningful portion of the load. So this is there's a lot of question marks still around this Rams team. I just there doesn't happen to be a good heir apparent that can go and snatch the crown from them.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about that division and who we like and who has the value. And you guys like the value of the Niners plus 450. I'm looking forward to talk about that on Friday. Let's move on to Dolphins Saints. I got the Dolphins win total under 5.5 at minus 150. It's now minus 170 if you wanted that now. The Saints, there's been a 10-cent move towards their under 10.5 wins, a 10-cent move, but they're still 4-1 to win the conference, 8 to win the Super Bowl. I'm not going to have either of those tickets in my pocket. Miami, New Orleans. New Orleans opening up at minus 4. They're now some minus 3s, mostly 3.5s. This total high for week 4, up to 37.5 at bookmaker. Donnie RightSide, Dolphins Saints.
Yeah, I think we saw a little bit of a picture of what the Miami Dolphins should be doing, and just sitting there watching it live. Ryan Fitz, I mean, it's kind of charming in its way for an old man with a beard who came from Harvard, who runs around a lot out there, but not a lot happens. And then you get to Josh Rosen, you see some of the flashes that he has. The Miami Dolphins, only thing they should be doing is starting Josh Rosen this year, which immediately sets me to an under because he's going to learn on the fly, and the Dolphins will already have that mode in the locker room that says, you know what, we brought in Fitzpatrick because we wanted to maybe win now, 5-6 games, stay competitive. But as soon as you flip the switch over to Rosen, you're already in rebuilding mode, which shows me a 5.5 would be a smart play on the under. In the football game in this one here, don't really have too much of a look or lean. Maybe New Orleans, but I still think Miami, one of those teams that doesn't expect much in the regular season, does a bit harder in preseason game 4 because they're still trying to find out who they have a football team. But Rosen should be the clear starter week 1. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever for Fitzpatrick to be anywhere near a starting job down in Miami.
Well, judging by the beat writers while we were in Miami, I was reading Miami Herald every day. Judging by them, it's a done deal that Fitzpatrick will start game 1. Flores has tons of questions about Rosen, tons of questions about even his body language, like just maybe he's just trying to get the best out of Rosen, but it'll be Fitzpatrick, according to the beat writers, who will be starting game 1 and possibly games 1 through 5 or 6, depending on what happens. Whale Capper, Dolphins, Saints.
Yeah, Saints are a team that I'm cold on. I agree with the line movement on their win totals. I don't have anything on this particular game, so I'm going to spend most of my time here talking about the Dolphins, who look like they are going to legitimately replay the entirety of the 2018 Arizona Cardinals season. They hired a defensive-minded coach. They put some pieces in to run the offense who I have 0.0 confidence in. They have Rosen sitting behind an established quarterback who likely won't make it 2 or 3 weeks into the season before everyone in the universe realizes he shouldn't be out there starting. And I would guess week 3, week 4, we're going to see them inject Rosen onto a team that has no chance to protect him. Offensive line, bottom 5, clearly. They have issues in the trenches on the defensive side. They can't stop the run. They're not going to be able to get after the quarterback. Their only strength is they have a little bit of decent pass defense in terms of coverage ability. Their weapons are a humongous problem in the passing game. Like, this looks this is like, am I taking crazy pills? We really are going to redo this whole thing. We just saw what happened here. And we're going to rerun the entirety of the Arizona Cardinals season from last year except this time in teal green. This is a 3-13 team. Josh Rosen is going to have PTSD after a second season of running for his life. And it really sucks that he never really got a good talent development staff around him or a legitimate chance to develop into an NFL level quarterback. But I think the ship has pretty much sailed on him.
Rosen looked strong against the third stringers of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Did he though?
Did he though? I mean, they put up some points. I can only remember bits and pieces due to my alcoholism, but I remember him putting up a few points. All right, we have 3 more games, and we've got to put a bow on this. We have Arizona, Denver, Chargers, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle. So on Friday, we're going to talk futures heavy, so we're not going to talk about them here right now. But there's been little to no changes in either of these 6 teams' futures, almost nothing, like 0 changes. But we'll handle that on Friday. Of these games, Arizona, Denver, Chargers, San Francisco. San Francisco now 4-point favorites. In Arizona, Denver's gone down to 2-point from 3-point favorites. And Seattle, Oakland's taking a little bit of money as Gruden is showing his expertise in preseason football. I mean, when the players care, Gruden seems to not care. But when the players couldn't care less, that's when Gruden steps up with the cameras on him. What a loser. Okay, Arizona, Denver, Chargers, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle. Donnie RightSide, is there any spot here in this exhibition on Thursday, in these exhibition games or preseason games on Thursday that you like?
You know what? The only one I would look at is the one you just went over last with the Oakland Raiders. I mean, they've been kind to me in the preseason. And again, when you're just trying to find some spots here, it just seems John Gruden likes Peterman is going to pull the strings and actually open up a legitimate playbook to try to make, I don't know if it's whether he wants him to start over Carr or he just wants to trade him, or I don't know what the deal is, but I just like the way the Raiders have fought and finished throughout all preseason games. I know Pistol Pete's back. They really want to win. But hey, if you're going to give me points with the Oakland Raiders right now, I'm going to take it.
Taking points with the Oakland Raiders, that makes sense. But Pete Carroll also does care about games that no one else cares about. Mm-hmm. But Oakland has stepped up in that situation. Whale Capper, Arizona, Denver, Chargers, San Francisco, Oakland, Seattle. Is there a spot on any of these games that you like?
Donnie and I have a consensus here. We're across the country from each other, but we're still kind of on the same wavelength. Nathan Peterman must have gotten in early and shined up Gruden's shoes day one in camp, and Gruden is bound and determined to make him look good here. So if you're going to give Nathan Peterman a full complement of prep and passing plays in the second half of this game, I could see the Raiders coming away with the win. So I would look for a Raiders money line play here. Otherwise, these are all pretty horrific games.
Pretty horrific games. Well, when we meet again on Friday, we will be a few short days away, 6 days away from the opening of the NFL season when games matter. The future bets will need to be locked in by me, although I will make about 30% of the amount that I made last year. And then it starts for real. So this is our last Audible when everything isn't on the line, and I'm very excited about that. We have no show without this incredible chat. Ray Williams, Larry Savage, Pie Guy, Brandon Lugo, Tom Marino, Tomor, Flipper 13, Trot Wham, Riku Roxas. What a great group. Thank you guys for rolling with us. Ty Clinton, Jake Bell, Bleds W, Pie Guy, all you guys, thank you so much for rolling with us. Donnie RightSide, we put to bed preseason football at last. Any final notes?
Yeah, I mean, way back from we started filming the future shows on doing the conferences here, it's like, man, it's still so far away. But the summer goes all the way through, and here we are in football season. And we're not going to talk college football, but nice little spread on Thursday. Just dips right into next Thursday night. We have live NFL football for real. We made it, guys. We made it. We made it. It did help blacking out for the week in Miami and not remembering what happened in week 3 of the preseason. It shortened the preseason a little bit. Whale Capper, any final notes?
Yeah, week 3 of the preseason was great. I don't remember what happened, but it was super fun. The week 4 is going to be an afterthought. Here's my best tip for the whole weekend this weekend. This is your last chance to spend time with loved ones. Give them your time and attention on Thursday night, on Friday night, on Saturday night. Obviously there's college football to bet, but this is your last chance to really kind of spend some quality time with the wife, with the fam, with the girlfriend before kind of really getting to the grind of the regular season of the NFL. So make the most of it. Bank a little bit of that goodwill so that when you're up, when you're up watching, 12 hours of straight football on the first Sunday of the NFL season, you're not getting side-eyed. Take care of everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And we all know that the side eye will be there regardless. We all know that will be there. But we will deal with it like gentlemen. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to the chat. Thank you to our esteemed experts, Donnie RightSide and Whale Capper. On Friday, this gets serious. The show gets serious. And we'll have 2 days to break down the opener. And we'll have 3 days, 3 shows to break down the big slate on Sunday. On behalf of Donnie RightSide, Whale Capper, and myself, everybody at SBR, thank you guys so much for watching, and especially you guys in the chat. We have no show without you. It's almost over. We can almost talk about real games so soon. Talk to you guys soon. Thank you for watching.